Welcome to Discovering True Health, where our goal is to provide you with cutting-edge health information through research, interviews with experts, and personal journeys to true health. Our message is a message of hope and healing, and our mission is to bring you on a journey to discovering true health, to not only find wellness, but to thrive. Hello and welcome to Discovering True Health, your weekly deep dive into health and wellness. Thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on all our upcoming shows. You can also check out additional information on our website, Instagram, or Facebook. All those links are below. So today we'll be learning about IBS. We'll be talking about what it is, how to mitigate symptoms, and ultimately find healing. And this is from aboutibs.org. IBS affects between 25 and 45 million people in the US, and about 2/3 of IBS sufferers are female, and it affects people of all ages, even children. So if you've been living with IBS, you're not alone. And the good news is there is a path to healing. So I have on with me today IBS nutrition consultant and holistic health and wellness coach, Laura Martin. She specializes in gut health, anxiety, and nervous system regulation. And she's founder of Healing to Happy, where she helps hundreds of women around the world create sustainable success with healing IBS using methods that focus on gut-brain connection and metabolic restoration. So thank you, Laura, for joining me today. I'm so excited to learn more.
Yes, me too. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So first, can you talk a bit about what IBS is for those that don't know and what the possible symptoms of it are?
Yeah, so IBS is irritable bowel syndrome. So irritable, something's upset, bowel in your colon, syndrome chronically over time. Common symptoms are constipation or diarrhea. So you want to be going to the bathroom 1 to 3 times a day. Even though some doctors will tell you like, oh, it's fine 3 times a week. It's like, no, you need to eliminate, you need to get that stuff out at least once a day. Ideally in the morning before coffee without any stimulation or any, just naturally on its own. Or we have the alternative where it's diarrhea, where it's all day happening, which means you're not taking in food. Those are the common ones. We also have acid reflux. We have skin issues. Our gut is home to everything about us. It controls absolutely everything. So it's wildly fascinating. But when it comes to IBS, the common things would be constipation and diarrhea.
Got it. Okay. And now you've personally experienced the negative effects of IBS and other health issues, which is what started you on this journey to become an IBS anxiety coach and create a successful healing method. Can you share a bit with us about your journey and battle through IBS and the health issues that you were struggling with and what really worked for you to help resolve it?
Yeah, so I hit a rock bottom moment at 24 years old. I was in a domestically abusive relationship. I was living in Asia. I was very undernourished. I was 40 pounds underweight. I had hyper, then hypothyroidism. I had a missing period at that time for 3 years. It took me 5 years, 6 years in total to get a natural cycle again. I had skin flare-ups. Like my body was like telling me, she's like, please, can you just like do something about this mess? Yeah, she's like, please. And so in that rock bottom moment, you have 2 choices, sink or swim. That's it. Right. I chose to swim and I found my way to nutrition because I sat down with a friend and she was like, hey, you have a really disordered relationship with food. Why don't you go learn about it? Like, go do something in that field. And I was like, all right, cool. Like I did that. But I became my own guinea pig because I had yet to actually focus on the trauma and the nervous system work and all that kind of stuff. So nutrition became my escapism. I became obsessed with it. I went the whole orthorexic route. I tried every diet that I learned in school. I was the gut queen, and yet nothing was fixing what was going on in my body. I just was gaining more knowledge, but I was getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And so I specialized in gut health and went back and got the certifications for that. And still everything around it is elimination diets, restrictions, massive amounts and expensive supplements, like all of these things that I have a history of an eating disorder. It took me 10 years to get over it. I like sat in there and I was like, okay, yeah, at first my brain's like, ding, 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 yay, like we love this, let's do it. And then as I'm doing the spiritual work on the other side of this, it's like, yo, although it's healthy, like you're living inside of an eating disorder right now.
This created a new eating disorder that was
exactly
healthy, but it was still eating disorder.
I was a nightmare. Like I was an absolute nightmare to be around, like going out to eat and all this kind of stuff. And it's okay. Like I had to go through that journey. Anyone that is in that space, like that is the routine we usually all go on. It's like, let me go on eliminations. Let me cut this out. Let me do this thing. And so my work began when I sat in my naturopath's office and I was like, I'm so confused, like sobbing, broken down and being like, oh, I don't know what's going on. She's like, do you want to talk about how your depression and like anxiety is linked to all this? And I'm like, no, I do not. Left for about a year to try a whole bunch of different diets. But you know, when someone plants the seed and you're like, I can't forget that. Like it's there. And so finally I dove into it. My background is psychology. I have nutrition. I have gut health. I'm now trauma certified, like all these different kind of things. Understanding now that IBS is actually a nervous system issue, like because of my nervous system being a wreck my entire life of, you know, young trauma, older trauma, all these kind of things, eating disorders, all that kind of stuff. It was actually what led to the mineral depletion that was then showing up in signs of IBS. And so now all the recent studies that are coming out with what IBS is, it's just a nervous system issue. You know, we all have food intolerances. We all have these kind of things or reactions to food, not to food intolerances, but we all have reactions to food. But those that have IBS, we just have a more sensitive nervous system. So we feel it. But yet we're chasing food and eliminating food and creating all this food anxiety, which is just perpetuating the cycle, which keeps us stuck on these restrictive dieting things. And it's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Like, where do I go from here? And really, it's this double-edged sword. And so, or double-edged, I don't know, something that's not a sword, something that's nice, that comes through.
Coin.
Yeah, exactly. That will, you have to look at both. You cannot heal the gut without looking at the brain. You cannot heal the brain without looking at the gut. And from there, we see people heal. And so me, like I take no medications, I take nothing anymore. My clients, the same thing. It's really just when we start to look at it as opposed to like, what's wrong with you? And like how Oprah's new book is like, what happened to you? Like that is truly what we have to start looking at, is like, what's been going on along the line to lead you here so that we can overcome this and get back to eating like normal human beings. Like,
yeah, that's fascinating. So okay, so we have the gut brain, correlation and the nervous system. How do all those interact? I know the gut, and like you mentioned before, it's the control center for all the operating systems in our body, and our immune system is also mainly on our gut. So it's, and also, creates things that happen in our brain. So there's a lot going on in the gut. But how does the nervous system come into play in all this?
So our nervous system, when it's in overdrive, right? So our central nervous system and our enteric nervous system. Our enteric nervous system controls all of our survival organs, including our gut. It's this thing that we don't, this is one of the reasons our gut is called our second brain. We don't have to tell our food to digest. We don't have to tell our heart to beat, our lungs to breathe, our muscles to do the little thingies. Like it does it all on its own. And then the central nervous system is like what's controlling our movement and all that kind of stuff. And so they work hand in hand, right? And so what's happening when we are stuck in fight or flight, whether it's from big T trauma, little T trauma, you got in a car accident, you had food poisoning, someone scared you one time and you can't get over it, or your mom took away your toy when you were 7 years old and you just haven't rewired that in your subconscious. There's so many things about the human body. But if we're stuck in fight or flight, because of our enteric nervous system, because of our vagus nerve, our longest cranial nerve, all of our blood flow, all of our anti-inflammatory compounds, all the things that we need to survive are going to be going to our survival organs. And then the anti-inflammatory compounds that are released from our vagus nerve is going to be shut down, because when we're overstimulated because of trauma or whatever, we live in a modern world, we're in the middle of a pandemic or coming out of it, whatever, like we're in it. When that happens, our vagus nerve will shut down. So that tone, this is why you see a lot now in the IBS world and anxiety world, is like, we got to get that stimulation going again, because if we want the inflammation in our body to go down, an elimination diet is not going to do that.
Wow.
Like there's certain types of food, sure, you can add it back in, but if you want the communication to be going properly through your enteric nervous system again, you got to be looking at how do we get our body out of fight or flight and into rest and digest so that she can ultimately heal and thrive in this modern day and age.
Wow. And yeah, I was reading in your course, you talk about IBS is not a food issue. So it's basically a nervous system issue.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's fascinating. Now you created or developed a method called the free method. Can you share with us kind of an overview on what that is?
Yeah, so I have two main courses, right? Like one is about metabolic issues and one is about anxiety and trauma recovery. Both go through the same process because that's just human nature. FREE, F being foundations. You have to know where you're at, what you're doing, how you're feeling, how is this behavior impacting your day in and day out before we start jumping into any diet. Because the reason you got here having these symptoms, whether it's life, business, relationships, whatever, you're doing something every day that's impacting this that you're not seeing. And just because you say kumbaya and, eat a avocado isn't going to fix that.
So there's something you're doing that's kind of triggering that part of your nervous system.
Yeah. I mean, it's that daily habit. What are you doing every day that's stimulating it? So if we're talking about nutrition, what are you eating? How often are you eating? How are you feeling about what you're eating? What's happening in your day-to-day life when you're eating? How's that looking? Before I start telling you about functional foods and doing all that kind of stuff, what are you doing? And then we start to add in the stuff, and that's where the reprogramming is. So our gut can start to change within 4 days of eating the right foods that she needs. Our brain, it fires and wires differently because of neuroplasticity, epigenetics. We get a choice of what DNA is turned off and on inside of us based on our lifestyle habits. Like we have to start understanding how to reprogram these habits. And then from there, we move into the first E, which is exploring. So we're looking at functional foods. We're looking at different nutrition routines. We're looking at, maybe supplements if that's what we have to do for a little bit while we're getting the body to replenish herself and really kind of getting comfortable in this integration. Because in my world, women are so undernourished because they're so afraid of food. So how do we start to explore food as an experiment without it meaning a definition? You're going all the way backwards because we have this pass and fail mentality where it's like, no, you really can't mess this up. You really can't. You're going to be bloated sometime, sure, but you're not going to mess this up. We just got to start working this muscle again, getting the diversity back so you can get back to eating optimally. And then from there, we look at the last E, which is evolve. And that's your entire lifestyle. How do you make this a daily thing? Like, I don't think about my nutrition anymore. It just kind of happens. I don't think about my movement. I don't think about, my trauma and my regulation things. Like it's just a day in and day out thing that doesn't feel like it's so invasive. And that's what we need in this world, because when we stop fighting our body like it's a weapon, we show up better. We show up better, women, partners, friends, lovers, like all these different things. We show up better when we stop fighting ourselves. So how do we make our world something that is fluid and simple through these processes? And from there, it's just this evolution and growth.
I love that. That's powerful. And I think you mentioned, and I thought this was fascinating in my research for the show, and I didn't realize IBS is more prominent in women. Mm-hmm. Is there any kind of, I don't know, have you learned anything?
One, we are just emotional creatures. Like we just got to own it. Like we are so involved with our emotions, where it's like men, they're like sitting there thinking about nothing. Right. And then like we're thinking about like what we said last Tuesday at 4:42 p.m. And it's like, why does my brain do this? Like we're just higher strung people, totally fine. We also have more hormones, our hormone regulation and the way that our world is nowadays, like it's just all over the board. And honestly, I would say the core of it is stress related. We just feel things more deeply. And instead of seeing that as a superpower, we try and shove that down where it's like, I'm fine. Then someone breaks your favorite glass one day and all of a sudden it shows you were definitely not fine. Like right. It's this series of things. And so, I mean, of course, it's still studies going on, but I would bet my bottom dollar it has to do with just we are more emotional creatures. We feel things. And plus, I don't have any friends that have never been on a diet. like every woman I know has been on a diet. We've cut out things, we've experimented, we've done all these crazy pills and teas and all this kind of stuff. It's like we've done a work on our body over the
Messing
years.
with our gut a lot more than men.
Exactly. When men are like, I don't care. Like
Ad bod is okay.
exactly. I mean, they're involved, sure, but it's like
Right.
it's just I've been on a diet since I was like 9, like it's these young things we've been perpetuating over our lifetime where it's like, yeah, that kind of entirely makes sense.
Totally. And you touched on this a bit, but what diet nutrition mistakes do you find a lot of your clients are making before working with you? And what are some strategies and kind of mind shifts around nutrition and diet that you recommend that are effective?
Yeah, I mean, the common one is low FODMAP diet, which is, I'm not even going to try and pronounce all the little things. It's just saccharides, a bunch of little sugars your body can't digest. That's a common one because high FODMAP foods, they're going to be harder for your body to break down. That's normal. Anyone that eats, think broccoli. I don't know anyone that doesn't get farty after they eat broccoli. It's just like people get in pain when they have IBS. But the problem is, if you go on that, I never prescribe it, but if you go on that, you're supposed to be on that for like 6 weeks. I have clients come to me that have been on it for decades. They're like, oh, I've been doing it. And I'm like, oh my God. Like,
So it's called the what? The I'm
low FODMAP.
low FODMAP. Okay.
Yeah, low FODMAP. And so usually it starts with like, let me cut out dairy, let me cut out gluten, let me cut out different kind of things. And then all of a sudden they realize they're still not getting better. So they're like, I go to the doctor, I do the test, I do the thing. They don't know what's wrong with me. They prescribe me Miralax or Imodium, depending on which symptoms you have, and going on the low FODMAP diet. That's it. Like they don't ask about anything more than that. And it's not explained. It's really kind of, it's this thing because when you go home and you Google IBS, all you see is all the foods you probably normally eat. And you're like, well, now what? Like, what do I eat from here? And it's this whole thing. And so what I walk people through is one, no, like we do not do low FODMAP diet. We ask the deeper question of why can't you digest these foods? Why is cheese all of a sudden upsetting you? Why is toast all of a sudden upsetting you? Why are eggs all of a sudden? Why is this happening? Because it's not the food's fault. It's somewhere in your body, your metabolism went, we don't like this anymore. So why did she do that? And so we start to work our way backwards from there, making sure that there's no overgrowth, pathogens, parasites, things like that. We all have them, but when they overgrow, that's when we're going to see these chronic infections. And we want to deal with that first while also restoring the stomach acid and our metabolic function so you can eat normally again. I'm not saying you're going to go eat, pizza and all this kind of stuff every day, but you should be able to enjoy the holidays without a freak out. You should be able to integrate these foods and eat in such a way. And that's why like gut recharge, that's what it's focused on, is the functional foods, and like not let me have like the superfoods. I'm talking like beef liver, and I'm talking like butter, and I'm talking, like nutrient dense foods that our body needs so we can replenish the storages in our system so we can better handle the rest of life. Because even when it comes to stress, like and this is why I work in IBS anxiety, if your body's not regulated, your mineral depletion is low, your vitamin depletion is low, so you're going to be more reactive to things. So when we start to replenish them with the not so sexy foods, your body can actually handle these stressors a lot more, and it's easier to make these decisions when it comes to game time of like, what do I eat? How do I eat? It's like, it's really not that hard. Like we overcomplicate this whole thing with all these rules.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much out there. It gets so confusing.
Oh my goodness. Everything is gluten-free or has gut health written on it nowadays. And you're like, I don't know.
What do I choose? I mean, even I find for myself, even trying to find anything, looking at the labels without sugar, and it's difficult.
Oh yeah. But like, even like looking at labels and reading them, it's like N2QSR. And you're like, I don't remember seeing that on the farm. Like, I don't know what that is.
Right.
But yeah.
Yes, it's a whole new world out there of food. So all of us women out here, and I'm sure men do too, but what causes or can cause bloating? And what are some tips and strategies to help us kind of deal with it, eliminate it if possible?
Yeah. So one of the most common things I see with bloating is the nutrition routine. I actually just made a post about this. So on average, people are they're eating 16 times a day. We're making sure we're under our calorie count or we're in our fasting window, but you picking up your kid's little scrap of food that they didn't finish and not putting it into your MyFitnessPal or whatever, that's still revving up your digestion. Like, even though we're focused on that's still working your digestion, we're adding these things in. And so when I help my clients, it's usually making sure they're having breakfast, making sure they're getting out of the fight or flight straight away, eating breakfast within an hour of waking, and then eating every 3 to 4 hours from there, making sure it's spaced out, because you're fasting. I know it's a huge, sexy thing right now, but you're fasting in those 3 to 4 hours of not eating, right? That's your mitigated functions coming through. It's like the clean sweep. It's like getting things out. And then you're fasting while you sleep and you're good. You don't need to be, if you're struggling with IBS and anxiety, you don't need to be putting more stress on your body by starving it. Definitely doesn't
No
work.
intermittent fasting.
No, absolutely not. Especially like women of reproductive age. Like, it's just, no, please stop it. And then just going in that cycle and starting from there. That's where I would start. Before we start cutting out these foods, again, look at the foundation. What's going on here every single day? And how do we want to start to integrate things from there? Like 9 times out of 10, it's lifestyle when it comes to bloating. If it's not some type of undergrowth or overgrowth or infection or something like that, but yeah, it's usually lifestyle.
Interesting. And you did touch about a little bit on this earlier. Can you explain why restrictive diets and elimination can cause anxiety, and what happens to our body when we're not getting the nutrients our body needs?
Yeah, I mean, because of the gut-brain connection, it causes the reaction that we feel in our gut. But like, anytime anyone has been on a diet, you sit down with them, they make you nervous. They're like, I can't have that. I can't have that. I can't. And you're like, what can you eat? And it's this anxiety cycle going on. And they're like, no, I'm just like doing Whole30 and I'm just doing this. And like, I can't. And you're like, so do you want water? Like, this is stressing me out. I don't know. But that's what's going on in our body. And because of the enteric nervous system, our blood flow is going to be going all the other places except for reproduction and except for digestion. And so when we are in a restricted state, that's our body going, oh, famine, like something's wrong, because our body's not like, she's brilliant and we live in a modern world, but she ain't that brilliant. She still thinks it's caveman times. And if we didn't have food then, we had to hold on to it. This is why we have inflammation. This is why people are like, I've been dieting for years and I can't lose this last 10 pounds. And it's like, that's the problem. Like, we got to get you out of that so we can start to get this going and release this inflammation from your body. And oftentimes when it's restriction, like low FODMAP and things like that, you're not getting enough nutrients. That's it. Like, you're usually eating the same foods every single day, and the lack of diversity inside of your gut is going to give you reactions to food, because it's like going to the gym and trying to pick up this 100-pound weight, but you've never been to the gym. Like, that's not going to work. You got to start to integrate different types of bacteria, different diversity, different types of things, so that then when you start to eat foods that you're not normally used to, say the holidays or things like that, your body can handle it because that muscle is strengthened. But if you've only been eating the same 5 foods, of course you're going to flare up. Of course you can't pick up that 100-pound weight. You haven't been to the gym. Like, that just, that's just how it works.
Amazing way to think about it. So it's a really great mindset shift. I love that. So you're restricting your diet, you're not getting enough, your body freaks out, and it's like, okay, we're going to just focus on the main organs to keep you alive and kind of shut down the rest.
Exactly.
Wow. Yeah, that's not good. Let's not do that. Now, you talked about medications earlier. What are things we need to be aware of when it comes to taking medications? Because that's kind of the way our healthcare system's set up at the moment, as far as our gut health goes. And what would be some things we could do to counter the damage? Let's say we absolutely have to take them for something. What do we need to know, and how can we kind of counter any damage that they cause?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. Honestly, no shame on the medical game. Like, if you have to take medicine, take the medicine. Like, that's what it's literally there for. The problem is we're overdoing it on, like, when you really just need a cup of tea and a nap, you're like, let me take that medicine for my brain and things. Exactly. It's like, no, just go take a nap. Like, that's the problem, is we're overdoing it, and overdoing it overdoes it. That's the way that works. We're getting to a point where we're so hyped up on antibiotics, we're running out of antibiotic streams because our microbiome has so many in them. They're like, we don't know what to do anymore. So the thing is, if you need them, fine. Like, that's the thing, is like, but do you need them? need is different than desire. That's very different there. And then over-the-counter medication, just NSAIDs are horrible for your gut. Like over-the-counter things like antacids and acid blockers and PPIs and things for your gut and, headache medication and pain, like all the, stop it. Like just go take a nap. You're fine. Drink some tea. Your body is trying to tell you something. You're trying to shut it down with a quick fix.
Wow.
That's why it's not going away. We got to lean in with curiosity instead of shutting it down. And then from there, like how we can prepare our bodies in these times. I mean, I have a blog on what to do when we have to take antibiotics, because it's a thing. You should fight back sometimes being like, why am I taking this? But like, we have to take them sometimes. It's really, in some cases, depending on what it is, we need to be taking a probiotic, usually a medical grade form, so that it can overcome. You want to make sure it's a spore base. You want to make sure it's well researched. That whole market is bananas. Like you got to do the research on that stuff, because you can actually mess up your gut if you don't. Making sure you're having a diverse foods that are easy to digest. So again, you want to make sure they're well cooked. Those are easy. That's like cooking it is like, quote, like pre-digested kind of. Or smoothies pre-digested. So that will be easier for your body to actually get the nutrients back in. You want to make sure you're resting, because again, because of that blood flow, you need it to be going to your gut right now so that she can repair herself. Otherwise, if you just keep doing the gung-ho thing, it's not going to help repair that. You got to really focus in on, exactly. You got to like make the time to heal. It's okay. Like we got to stop demonizing rest. Like that's, your body told you she's sick. Yeah. She needs repair. Listen, like, yeah, sure, you might miss a week. Like, what's a week in the rest of your lifespan? That's nothing. Make sure you're giving that rest, making sure you're having enough of the right foods, making sure you're supporting your liver. So a big thing, your liver is your main organ of detoxification. It's, your pancreas, your gallbladder, that whole system. It's all about producing enough bile, which is your natural laxative producer. It's your everything that breaks it down, the stomach acid, all that kind of stuff. So really for me, I focus on, I know it's weird, but eating the animal that you want to, like the organ of the animal that you want to support. So I personally don't like to eat it, but I will buy desiccated beef liver supplements and eat that. I'll make sure I'm eating a lot of herbs and things like that, because that helps to spike stuff up. Like I lived in Asia for 6 years. They cook with herbs all the time. In America, not so much. Like it's not, we get like the pantry spices. We don't actually use herbs. We like, herbs are so good for your liver, like cilantro and all that kind of stuff. Use those things, have soups, get the bone broth, make the space to really let your body heal. And from there, watch how quickly she bounces back and how she doesn't get sick again. It's going to be fascinating.
Beautiful. Yes. Listen, that's your body trying to talk to you. I love that. Now in your program, you also work with clients on mindfulness practices and consciousness shifts. How do these types of things affect our gut, and what are a few that we could all implement?
Yeah, I mean, that comes with your relationship to food, your relationship to life. Like before I start out with any of my clients, hold on, sorry. Before I start out, okay.
Water time.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. There we go. Okay. So before we start out with any of my clients, we start with this circle of life. Okay. And in there, whether it's a business thing, whether it's a life thing, you want to fill out all the kind of arenas. There's like 9 on there, I want to say. And it's like finances, relationship, home environment, home cooking. Like you get to fill in whatever it is to you, what would make your life this va-va-voom kind of life. And then you start to rate yourself on it. You can Google this, look up a circle of life. It's there. And just kind of rate yourself on it. Because if those pillars aren't fixed, having the most perfect diet is not going to do anything. We got to be looking at the full circle of the spectrum of our life. How is our relationships? How is our social connections? How are we showing up to work? How do we feel about money? How do we feel about ourselves? How connected to us are we? Like, we have to start going through these practices of being more self-aware, because if we're chasing diet after diet since the age of 13, you probably aren't very connected to yourself. Let's be honest. We've been outsourcing how our body feels to other people for our entire life. When you bring it back in and you're like, oh yeah, like I could use some more creativity and play here. I could really do some more like feminine energy work here. I could really start to explore this here and add some light to these other arenas of your life. And, that's the woo-woo side of it, sure, but it's also the science, because you get yourself out of survival mode. When you start to love yourself more and you pay attention to your body, you're like, oh, I can tell when I'm out of body. I can tell when I'm dysregulated. My heart starts beating, my breath starts being shallow. I start like getting my brain starts being like, like it's ping pong ball. I'm like, I can't make a decision right now. And it's like, well, you're not regulated. That's what's happening.
Right.
And once we go through these practices of really kind of looking at the full picture of what you want and where you're at, we actually can start integrating your personalized nutrition routine inside of that.
Wow. So those actually, those will affect our bodies because it affects our nervous system. We get into fight or flight. So fascinating. So important. Now we can find you on healingtohappy.com. Yes. And you also have Instagram and Facebook. Yes. And you have a lot of really great resources on all of them. And I'm going to post all those links below. And can you share a bit about your programs and the resources that you have on your platform?
Yeah. So Gut Recharge is our metabolism course, which is 4 weeks. We walk through it all. We're currently working through adding in some trauma stuff into that as well, because I've realized it needs to be talked about inside of there as well. So we're adding bonus modules. There are live calls to that. So you have 4 Q&As, so you're fully supported, and then you can upgrade to like Voxer access or VIP, where you can have some coaching in that. There's that side. And then the Labyrinth, which is our new course, and I just love the name of it. But a Labyrinth is basically a meditation tool that circles upon itself so that it can then come out and be reborn. And I'm fascinated because I feel like IBS and anxiety and mental health, it's always been a maze. But if we actually switch it around, it's a rebirth. And so that's what we're doing over 5 weeks, where it comes through, we're walking through, getting aligned in, our mind, our science, our life, our relationships, and things like that, so that we're fully supported. And it's just that soul connection to bring you back to yourself, so you have a sustainable recovery.
Beautiful. I love it. Yeah, it's amazing. It's so great connecting with people like you, because, there's so many people out there and that are, doing the holistic thing. You just got to find them, and it's amazing. And that's really where it's at. And I'm so happy we're all kind of shifting into that.
Me too.
Holistic, healing. Anyway, so thank you so much for joining me today. I really enjoyed this. And I love that you found healing through your own journey, and now you're sharing that wisdom to help others. You're completing that circle. So that's a beautiful thing. Before we wrap it up, do you have any final words of wisdom for those out there who may be going through a difficult time with gut and IBS issues?
Yeah, something that I hold true to my heart is just, you can't be at war with your body or your mind and win. It doesn't work. Anything you're feeling right now, whether it's a symptom of IBS or a symptom of anxiety, which are also both symptoms of things that are deeper, it's only your body trying to communicate with you. And when we actually lean into that with curiosity and wonder, instead of demonizing and shutting it down and being mad at that, we can start to make progression in this. It's not to say like tomorrow you sit down and you're like, yeah, I love myself. Like, there's a lot of subconscious work. We got to work on that. But like, it's the navigating, how do I treat myself like someone I love through this healing process? And from there we grow. And from there, it changes the journey.
Beautiful. Love yourself. Loving yourself is the way to healing. Love it. If you like this video, please like and share it with others. This information could really help someone you may know. Also hit that subscribe button to be sure you don't miss out on our future shows. And remember, knowledge is power. The more you understand about your body, the better you're able to stay healthy and prevent disease. And a reminder, I'm not your doctor. Don't take this as medical advice. If you have specific questions about your healthcare, reach out to your practitioner, and stay tuned for the next episode of Discovering True Health.